In part 1 of our video on Kakadu, we travelled the Arnhem Highway to Jabiru, boarded a Cessna aircraft and flew to Jim Jim and Twin Falls, then to Cooinda Lodge and a cruise on the Yellow Waters Billabong. In part 2, we continue our journey in the coach from Cooinda Lodge to Noolangi Rock.
On leaving the coach, we had a short hike to the rock to view the Aboriginal rock paintings at the Anbangbang Gallery. The gallery is a vast overhanging rock. A viewing platform has been constructed for visitors to appreciate the paintings on the rock face.
We visited the lower of the two sites in this location, and our coach driver explained some history relating to the rock paintings.
Aboriginal men and women enjoy dancing. Dancing adds to the life and vigour of most ceremonial events. These paintings depict the steps and movements in traditional dance, depending on the meaning of the ceremony.
Noolangi is the anglicised name for the area known as Noolangia. According to the traditional creation story, mythical short-eared rock wallaby ancestors travelled past Noolangi Rock, across the Anbangbang Billabong and went up into the rocks at Noolangia.
Compared with other paintings in Kakadu, the art in this gallery is relatively recent, produced probably within the last 1,000 years. Note the white man's gun portrayed at the top of the painting.
Nabulwin Bulwin is a dangerous spirit who eats females after striking them with a yam. Depressions in the rock show where they mixed their pigments for painting.
From Noolangi Rock, we continued on our journey to Jabiru, where we relaxed for the night in the pleasant surroundings of Kakadu Crocodile Holiday Inn. Next morning, we stopped at the local bakery to pick up the cut lunches for that day, before driving out to the Ranger uranium mine close by. We were not able to enter the mine, but our driver gave us a running commentary as we sat in the coach near the mine entrance.
Yeah, so you can see the buildings up over the other side, all involved in the process of extracting the uranium from the ore. So the pit here is around about 170 metres deep. The process of the large rocks that contain the uranium, they put it through a sulfuric acid deposits up here, known as the Alligator River Region's mine area, and Olympic Dam in South Australia come in and tell us. Yeah, and geologists of course have told us today, well, there's uranium in comparison to other places around the world. Koongara, Jabiluku, our ranger here, Jabiluku.
The Boali Visitor Centre nearby contained a wealth of information about Kakadu in the form of displays, videos and more.
From Jabiru, we travelled the 40 kilometres to Ubia, then set out on a 1 kilometre walk to the main gallery of rock art, passing some woolly butt trees along the way. The bark on the trunk of these trees had a very woolly appearance, hence the name Woolly Butt. Passing several small rock formations, we kept a lookout for rock wallabies, but they were hiding in the rock crevices out of the heat of the sun. At a small section of rock, we spent a few minutes examining the artwork of ancient Aboriginals in this part of the country.
However, it's not disrespectful to come along and just do a completely different bit of artwork straight over the top, because they believe that theirs is still there, it hasn't been duplicated. So some walls were just practice walls. Quite high up off the ground, so 5,000 years ago when these were painted, that's an estimate only. This ground would have been very different. It may have been higher, there may have been a rock ledge there where they were much more reachable, but it's since eroded. Yeah, look at the roots coming down. Touch up that artwork to keep it looking good for, you know, another 10 or 15 years or whatever. It's disrespectful.
Further down the track we came across a clump of pandanus trees. Natives call them jim trees.
The Aboriginal people know this tree as Djim, D-J-I-M. Whenever there's lots of something, they repeat the name of it. So Djim, lots of pandanus. Moisture through there, it's just in the air. But those roots also help to stabilise the tree in ground that's sometimes quite moist and damp. If you have a look at the one on the other side, up here, high up, you'll notice one of the fruit in the pandanus. Right up underneath the top leaves. We describe those as soccer ball type fruit, because it's sort of soccer ball size and look a bit like a soccer ball. Large segmented fruits which will eventually...
We came to a large rock face which was covered with many different types of Aboriginal art, and this kept our interest for some considerable time. These paintings are described as northern running figures. Archaeologists estimate them to be 5,000 years old. The paintings were said to be done by mimis, spirits. They are simple paintings done with red ochre and animal blood. A painting of Maluyu with his fish is a warning of the punishment for stealing. The daily life of Aboriginal people is guided by their traditional laws. As children, they are taught to respect these laws and the system of punishment that enforces them.
We had a moderately steep climb up to a rock gallery where we learnt that groups of Aboriginals sheltered in these rock overhangs, which were ideal places in which to paint. Art is a form of communication from generation to generation, portraying stories to the children, stories that have meaning to impress upon them the dangers and the consequences of disobedience to the laws of the land. Our reward on reaching the top of the climb was a spectacular view over the Nadab floodplain.
Returning from the climb, we boarded a boat for a cruise on the East Alligator River. Our native guide described many aspects of Aboriginal life and their use of trees in the making of weapons for hunting.
Owned by Indigenous people, and you do need a permit to get into that area. Permits can only be done through the Northern Land Council, and they're only open till Monday to Friday. But the biggest crocodile that we got in this river system is roughly the same size as this whole boat. Not same size, but lengthwise.
Ahead we saw the river crossing into Arnhem Land. Turning the boat around, we headed upstream, with Kakadu on our right and a commentary on the Aboriginal customs and methods of survival.
What we're doing is taking the inner layer of the bark out so that when we make a full grown spear. The only reason it's heavy is we usually put one of these in the end of it. This here is just a piece of metal.
The extent of floods in March resulted in a tree branch being caught in these trees high above our head. The water spread out over several kilometres of this landscape.
East Alligator River is approximately 160 kilometres long. Rising in the northern part of the Arnhem Land Plateau, it flows toward the northwest and meets up with Van Diemen Gulf at Point Farewell. On our left in Arnhem Land, Melaleuca trees flank the banks of the river. We kept a constant lookout for the freshwater crocodiles while we were told of their history, but only one was seen by a few in the back of the boat.
Follow that little river all the way down. They'll take you to a place called the rock holes. The rock holes can come up to 15 metres deep for the whole area. Home of your 2 metre barrows, but also the home of... She did it in the start of the build-up. That's when crocodiles start getting very aggressive and start... In the next couple of weeks, you may find some sea turtles laying their eggs in here, all freshwater crocodiles. As you just look here on the left, all foot deep, all the way out, all foot deep.
Sandbars in the river prevented us from travelling upriver as far as normal. Turning back, we cruised to a stop on the Arnhem Land side, where some Aborigines were constructing a wooden shelter. Our guide brought the boat around so we could step onto Arnhem Land. This huge sand dune and the sandbanks in the river were all the result of the cyclone and floods which had occurred in March, only 2 months earlier. The guide then spoke about Aboriginal weapons.
Really small ones used for really light spears. A little bit bigger one used for a bit of maybe beach hibiscus spears. So you don't break them or try and split the end. Then hold the spear through all together.
What's the little point on the end for?
Little point?
Yeah.
That's our peg. All our spears have little grooves on the end. Turn your finger, can cause death. A little splinter from a piece of ironwood tree. Like if you're using a sand or something, there's a lot of particles, always wear a dust mask. Sort of pushed him away with it as well. But we wouldn't have had metal, we would have had ironwood tips as well. But the prongs would have been this long. So yeah, just thinking, you miss your target, and you got a prongs that long, made out of ironwood, you hit a rock. A bit of a hard surface. Stepping on it, like so, getting it, and that's enough for me. And just lay it up then. But yeah, you have to stand on it, and you have to go real quick as well.
Finally, it was time for us to leave Arnhem Land, board the boat and return to the coach for the drive back to Darwin. Between Euboea and Jabiru, we passed many rocky outcrops and slowed to pass a fire burning by the side of the road. This burning off seems quite common in Kakadu National Park. Between Jabiru and Darwin, we had a brief stop to photograph one of the many termite mounds found by the side of the road.
About 60 kilometres from Darwin, we pulled into the visitor centre known as the Window on the Wetlands on Beatrice Hill, one of the highest points on the Adelaide River floodplain. At this vantage point, we stopped for refreshments and waited for the setting sun to bring to an end our 2 days in Kakadu.